Hey guys, welcome to the Dawg House Podcast. On this week's episode, we look at the big time matchup of Georgia against Alabama in the SEC championship game. We have Dave Ozment from the Alabama podcast give a score prediction and a preview. Can Georgia exercise the demons and get the victory over Crimson Tide in Mercedes-Benz, which they've lost the last three? And the big question of the week is Kirby Smart a better coach than Nick Saban currently? That was a question asked by David Pollock. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. That really helps out. Got a great special new guest from the Alabama podcast. He's gracious enough to join us. How we doing today, Dave?
Great, we're doing well, and I appreciate you having me on. Looking forward to talking a little ball.
That's great. And where are you sitting at, Dave? I assume maybe in Alabama, but I'm not sure.
North of Georgia, it's a little town called Ackworth. I tell people it's north of Marietta and south of Cartersville.
Okay, so kind of in that. I know Atlanta's huge, but kind of in that Atlanta area.
Yeah, we're in a concentric circle that is the Metro Atlanta area.
That's awesome. Well, yeah, thanks again for joining us. Yeah, jumping right into it. Georgia ends up getting the win over Georgia Tech, the Nerds, as I like to call them, in Atlanta, 31-23. I will say it was sluggish game at times, frustrating, but we did get the win. Finished the season 12-0. Third straight year, I think we went 8-0 within the SEC, and then actually I believe it's third straight year we went 12-0, I believe, which is great for Kirby Smart in the program. But I will say it got a little tight at the end. I will say some of the I don't want to blame the refs or anything, but there's some questionable calls. If we would have got that touchdown, Carson Beck, before he threw that pick, that touchdown that went to Dylan Bell, would have kind of iced it a little more. I believe that would have made it like 38-16, but ended up throwing a pick, and then Georgia Tech came down and scored. But I will give it to Georgia Tech. They were scrappy. Haynes King caused some problems. They did hang around. Brent Keys got them headed in the right direction, going bowling. I think they gave them the best shot. I feel like Georgia was trying to gut it out, sitting for their starters. Carson Beck, not his best game, 13 out of 20 for 175. Did have that pick. Kendall Milton's really coming around, which I think is going to be important down the stretch. 156 yards, 2 touchdowns. Ran for 262. Dylan Bell really stepped in. Kid's coming around. He's been a great fill-in while Ladd McConkey's been out with an injury. Brock Bowers, I think he did dress, so he could have played, but they sat him out. Also, Tate Ratledge, your starting lineman. He could have played, but they sat him out, and Ra Thomas. So all in all, definitely sloppy game, not the best game, but 31-23 might have been a look-ahead game from what Kirby said. But yeah, I want to get your thoughts on the on your thoughts, Dave. I believe you might have been recovering from that scare in the Iron Bowl.
I didn't watch a lot of the Georgia game. I'll have to be honest with recovery from the Iron Bowl sort of heart palpitations there, and certainly the celebration. I pretty well assumed that was a game that Georgia was going to have in hand. I did see Georgia's resting some guys for all the right reasons. Certainly nothing wrong with that in that situation. Brock Bowers was sort of, in case of emergency, break glass. He was at least dressed, but somebody else had his helmet probably. I understand how that works. And so, when you think about it, it's kind of went down how it's going to go down. I think Brent Key certainly does have Tech going in the right direction. They have, miles to go before they sleep. But I think Georgia wanted to get that game over with as fast as they could. And so running the ball, running the clock, just trying to get it done, hop back on the bus and drive back up to Athens. I think that's really all they had in their mind. And, the game probably played out that way, but you got the result you wanted. And at the end of the day, that's what it's about.
Oh, yeah, for sure. Hey, what wins win at the end of the day, especially coming off four big games, Florida game,
Yes.
Ole Miss game, Missouri game, Tennessee going on the road. And this was technically a road game, which I believe it probably primarily Georgia fans, but kind of gutted it out. Hopefully get back some guys. Did want to touch on the Iron Bowl. I will say 4th and 31. You can kind of break that down. What you thought? I first off just checked that one. That Alabama's got this one. I think it was it like 14.5 point spread. I know weird things happened. Jordan Hare, just Auburn coming off that beat down they had against New Mexico State the week before. I think even on all these preview videos that you ought to think nobody was expecting Auburn to hang around, but they did. I think Auburn was able to run the ball, which surprised a lot on Alabama. I think it's 244 yards. So yeah, I want to get your overall thoughts on the game in the Iron Bowl.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think what's the German word, Schadenfreude? I think that's very real in college football, and it's part of being a college football fan. And so, as sort of glorious as it was as an Alabama fan, to see Auburn struggle so much and lose so mightily to New Mexico State, that may have been, and I say this in sort of a weird way. Of course, they want to win that game, but that may have been the worst thing for Alabama, is for them to lose, and to lose so convincingly. Our guys obviously were thinking about Georgia. You don't want to drop the ball here, but goodness, they're not even as good as we thought we were, or as they were. And I think we carried some of that mentality into the game. And boy, it surely almost beat us. Auburn gets up for that game unlike anything else. It doesn't matter how their season has gone, who's on their team. It just doesn't matter. They play to a significantly higher level against Alabama, especially in Jordan-Hare. Sort of the joke is that stadium is built on some sort of Indian burial ground or something, because just weird things happen. Even Saban, who, he's not in sort of the woo-woo sort of mindset, but even he was saying strange things happen here. And I guess on Saturday they went in Alabama's favor. 4th and 31, the probability of ever converting on a 4th and 31 is certainly tough. And passes like that sometimes are even tough against air. And it was frustrating just to see almost the sands of the hourglass, leak through, right? We had the bad snap that, cost us 18 yards. And, then we're running the ball and we pass, the line of scrimmage. And so that tacks on more yards and a loss of down. And we talked about, on our podcast, we talked about, 3rd and 31 is a different world. You start, you call a different play, you do something different. Let's can we get half of that? Can we get it at a 4th and 15 or something like that? And so all of that sort of conspired against us. But when 4th and 31 hit, and they rushed 2 guys, and I hesitate to even say they rushed 2 guys, because one of them looked like he was spying. He was up sort of with the lineman, but when Milroe moved, he moved too. And I understand if you're getting after the quarterback, that's what you want to do. But the way he did it, he looked more spy than he did pass rusher. So rushing 2, I don't know, but Bond found the corner of the end zone, and a little bit of hand fighting there. It's a physical game, and boy, he caught that pass. And it reminded me, and I've not seen anyone sort of, say or speak to this, and certainly not trying to take away from Isaiah Bond, but the way that he reached up and leaned back and sort of caught it as it was going over, is that it just so reminded me of Devonta Smith. It was such a beautiful catch. And then, of course, he would, landed in bounds. And it was a frustrating game until it became magical. And that's kind of what Saturday was for Alabama fans.
Yeah, I think I saw at one stat there was a 0.1% chance of Alabama winning, and then I believe Milroe had around 6 seconds in the pocket. I think they timed it, which is a lot. And it's almost like it was a really bad prevent. I'm sure if Hugh Freeze had to do it all over again, the defensive coordinator would try to rush more, but it is what it is. But it's kind of like with Alabama. And then I think Chris Doering off SEC Network said Auburn was hoping to win, and Alabama knew they were going to win. And I think that's in the program.
I think I think they're at the end.
As you know, with Alabama, you got to cut off the snake. You got to put a crowbar to the head to knock them out. So, but yeah, I mean, great win. I think a lot of people were watching everywhere. I'm sure the ratings were great, but at the end of the day, 11-1, still a great year. And you guys are hot right now, coming off that Texas game, and you're trending, as one of the hottest teams.
Yeah, I agree. It's almost been sort of the tale of 2 seasons. The first half of the season, I didn't even take out the MTSU game, just quality of opponent. But but you can't throw out the South Florida game where we really looked bad. In against Texas in spots, we looked really, really good. The defense looked really good early, and really poor late. Milroe has developed tremendously as the season has gone on. And I think, sort of the last quarter or last third of the season, maybe since the Tennessee game, and then, certainly coming out of the bye, this Alabama team has really progressed, and it's a different product than what we started with. And all teams sort of grow and change and evolve over the course of the season. That's part of it. But in my years of watching Alabama and doing the podcast, I've not seen a team progress as far as this one has. It's been, and like I said, go back to, not only just the fourth quarter against Texas, but that South Florida game, man, just wash that away with the rain, because this I think truly is a different team. Milroe has progressed, doing things that I personally didn't think that he was capable of. A freshman offensive lineman was going to be the downfall of the team. It looked like early on, and he has been cemented as a starter. Even the rotation has has waned, and the defense. I always kind of thought the defense would be good. I was concerned about the defensive line, and it has really progressed too. We've had some players sort of burst on the scene, and so just player by player, position by position, I could name a bunch of other guys that we've seen progress in their performance, progress in their play. And so, is it going to be enough? Against Georgia, we'll talk about that. That's a high hill to climb. But I am pleased and just so satisfied with the progress that this team has made. In a way, I'm just real proud of this team. I guess I'm old enough that I can say I'm proud of these boys here, but I'm proud of this team, how they've matured. Their competitive maturity has really been off the charts. Last year's team didn't have it the way this year's team does. They've really been a joy to watch, and everything that you set out to do at the beginning of the season is still ahead of us. The committee's going to have a say in that, but the biggest say is going to be Saturday and what we bring to the table against you guys.
Oh yeah, for sure. And I believe Saban's probably having one of his funniest years, because he's grown with the players, kind of seeing these guys grow and evolve and do better. And I think a coach likes that, is when you see them improve over the year.
Yeah.
Maybe not necessarily thought they were the best, but as they've improved and gotten better. And I think that's what coaches like to see.
Saban is all about the process. And you think, well, what is the process? Well, you put a raw material in one end and you get a finished good out the other, right? And we were very much a raw material at the beginning, and we have a pretty nice little product, right here. Like you said, 10-1, whatever the record is, Georgia is its own measuring stick, right? And so whatever happens on Saturday does not diminish the progress that this team has made, and just the joy that this team has been to watch. Frustrating at times, certainly, but the progress, has certainly been a lot of fun.
Yeah, completely agree. Well, transitioning that, talking about our great sponsor of the year with the Dawg House Podcast, VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. These will be definitely great to drink before the game, during the game, because it's going to be very stressful. 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 88 calories. Really good for helping out with no hangover. My personal favorite is the watermelon. Elderberry is great. Huckleberry, grapefruit. But if you want 20% off, Dawg House 20 for 20% off discount, VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. Been a great sponsor of the show. Also would be great for the holidays, with the holidays coming up. Again, that's Dawg House 20 for 20% off, VivaTequilaSeltzer.com. And looking at the big time matchup, Georgia versus Alabama and Mercedes-Benz, 4 p.m. on CBS. Sad to say, I believe this is going to be the last telecast on CBS. I know you've enjoyed it. I always love the theme song.
Yeah.
Dun, 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 dun. And I do like, I know some people don't like Gary Danielson. I've always kind of liked him. I like Brad Nessler. But it's going to be the last of that telecast on CBS, and I believe it's going to be on with the Disney, ESPN Plus, and all those. But Georgia early 6-point spread. I believe it started out with 4, which I have been surprised how it has jumped up. So that means there's some money coming in on that. Carson Beck versus Milroe, which is going to be big. Did want to ask first off on the injury side, and I'll kind of touch on some of Georgia's. What's the update on the injuries? And is it Jace McClellan? I know he was spotted with a boot, I believe. I heard that from Paul Feinbaum, a little banged up. And think there's some guys in the secondary, but what's the update on the injury front?
Yeah, I think I think Alabama maybe is as healthy as they've been at this late in the season, and certainly has developed a lot of depth as a result of some of the injuries that we've gone through over the course of the season. You mentioned Jace McClellan. It's a little bit of a running back by committee. He was dinged up earlier in the year, which gave an opportunity for Jamarian Miller, sort of our third running back, to get a little more playing time, especially coming out of the bye. Jam has played a lot more, and so Jace has come back and certainly has looked strong against Auburn. He got a little dinged up, and he was on crutches and a boot. The last report that I had, and I was looking at, I haven't looked at anything today, but yesterday there was commentary that Jace had missed practice on Monday. And so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are sort of your big days. And so he missed practice on Monday. Now, I think, Saban, if he practices Tuesday and Wednesday, he'll probably retain his number one spot. If he's limited in any sort of way, then it'll be Roydell Williams probably as the number one back, with Jamarian Miller, or Jam, he goes by Jam now, Jam Miller getting more of the reps. I think, now I like Jace McClellan. I'm not mad at anybody on the roster. But Jamarian Miller has been a favorite of mine, dating back to last year when he was getting, scrap carries at the end of the game. He's a tough running back, and I think he's a little more dynamic than Jamarian than Jason Roy. And that could be a product of, their knee injuries as sophomores. But I don't know if he's going to play. He's probably limited, but if that gives an opportunity to Jamarian and maybe even Justice, I think Justice has a little magic. If we can get that out on the field, we'll see if that happens Saturday or not. On the defense, the rest of the offense, I think is pretty healthy. The defense, we had inside linebacker, middle linebacker Deontay Lawson. He played against Auburn, but sat out against UT Chattanooga. And then safety Jalen Key played against Auburn and sat out against UTC as well. And both of them were scraping rust off on Saturday, and maybe they weren't 100%. But I think getting some game action is good prep for them on Saturday. I think they'll be fully ready to go on Saturday, and then we have depth if we have to rotate folks in and out for them. But yeah, I think Jace may be the only question mark from a health standpoint, which this far into the season, that's tough to say.
Yeah, completely agree. It's good thanks for the update there. Yeah, on Georgia's end, looking pretty good on Brock Bowers. I believe he maybe could have played last week. Tate Ratledge, I believe, could have played. Two guys I'm not really sure about is Lad McConkey, who's probably at times number one receiver, and Ra Thomas, who's a good receiver as well. Not really sure about those guys. Jonathan's kind of keeping those close to the vest. Be good to get those guys back. But yeah, looking at the matchups, Jalen Milroy is going to be really tough to stop. Going to try to contain him somehow. But I was watching some film reviews from the film guy, which is a Georgia guy, content, Brooks Austin. He was saying what's interesting is it's not they don't really roll out Jalen Milroy at all. It's always like a 3-step drop, and then he pulls it down and he takes off after that. So that'd be kind of interesting. But from your what have you seen Jalen Milroy grow, and then maybe what are some of the weaknesses and I guess pros and cons of him from what you've seen throughout the year?
Yeah, no, I think that's spot on. I predicted as far back as the end of last season that Milroy would not be the starter this season. He doesn't run. He is athletically. He's not the same style of quarterback that Saban has been recruiting to and building an offense around. And so I was just convinced that he was not really going to get an opportunity this year. And I've not been more wrong on him. Now, many of my concerns early on is his accuracy and his intermediary passing. He's got a strong arm. He can sling it down the field. And you go back and you look at all his high school highlights, they're all just, deep passes down the field. Nothing sort of in, swing passes or, over the middle and tight coverage and any of those types of things. And so early on, I said that, we're going to be a boom or bust. We're going to, like the Texas game, we're going to be boom or bust. We're going to have a 60-yard, pass. But he better score, because if we're in a compressed field backed up to the end zone, we're going to be a running team, and that's all we'll be. And so I was really concerned about that earlier and early in the season. And he has progressed. Milroe has, with his reading the defense, and he's in, he would throw passes, just like an outlet pass, and either sail it over the guy's head or just hit the guy in the chest so hard that the ball sort of, would pop up. He just had one speed, and it was, on his passes, and it was built for downfield. And going into the bye, and especially coming out of the bye, he's been a different quarterback in that regard. He's got the touch. There was a play against Kentucky, which for me, you could say, well, it's, against Kentucky, but for me, it was his play of the season. The play was, designed to go to the left. He immediately saw that was covered, and he started to move to the right, not really run, not a rollout, not going to run, and he motioned to Roydell, and then he just threw a beautiful just rainbow pass over the leaping defensive lineman. Milroe got it, or Roydell got it and ran for a touchdown, and it was all the things that I said, that's a Bryce Young play. The fact that he read, quickly discerned, I can't go this way, I'm going to keep the play alive, I'm going to direct traffic, and I'm just going to put just the right touch on the ball. And that's a level of touch that he had not demonstrated, to that point. And he's continued to demonstrate that more and more. One more point, I think, on his development. Early in the season, I think he had sort of an allergy to running, that he wanted to demonstrate, I'm a passer, I can be quarterback, I can throw the ball. And coming out of the bye, again, the Tennessee game, and coming out of the off week, I just think they had a heart-to-heart with him, and sort of he agreed that, hey, use your legs, man. It's going to help the team, and it's going to give you more opportunities to be a passing quarterback. Mm-hmm. And so now he doesn't just take off to run for the sake of running, but we'll use him in designed runs, and he'll see the pocket break down, and maybe he'll step out and make some runs. I think the offensive line has progressed and helped in that regard too. He's still prone to, against Auburn, twice he threw the ball, beyond the line of scrimmage. That's frustrating, but I like the fact that he's continuing to look downfield. He early in the season, he wouldn't throw it out of bounds. He would take an 8-yard sack. And so a couple times against Auburn, he just chucked it out of bounds. And so sometimes that's the best thing you can do with the ball. And so there's still little things to clean up, but he is truly a different quarterback. If you watch the first couple games of the season and it went on a siesta and came back, you would say, who's the new quarterback? Because he truly does look that different.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely one of the most explosive guys in the nation so far. Been fun to watch. Georgia's going to have a tall task. Wanted to briefly look at this is from Jay Will. Jonathan had him on the podcast earlier this year. He's a great follow on X. So Georgia ranks 8th in scoring offense, averaging 39.6. Alabama ranks 17th, so pretty close there. Georgia has 6th best scoring defense, 15.8. Alabama is 14th. There's some other stats there. Also, Georgia's faced 3 teams that are currently ranked in those. They've averaged 40 points a game, giving up 16. Also, Alabama's faced 4 teams that are currently ranked 31 points a game. Any stats that you've read that really have really stood out? Also, I think third down is going to be really big. And as you know, Georgia's one of the best on third down, converting. Carson Beck, right there, 52 of 82, 713 yards, 6 touchdowns, 3 picks. Jalen Milroe, right in there is pretty even. Another interesting one, I believe Georgia averages over four more minutes a time of possession a game, and they're one of the better. I think they're top 15 in penalties, and I think Alabama has struggled on the penalties, maybe been a little undisciplined. So any key stats that you've read or that sticks out?
I think, you showed one of the stats there. Milroe only having 2 interceptions is really a surprise. I thought he might have one a week. And, if he has, 1 a week, but we can contain it to that, then, the defense is just going to have to do a little extra work. But the fact that he has so few, I think has been a surprise. Every week on the podcast, it's like, here's his numbers. and no interceptions, and sometimes long strings of completions, and so that's been really good. What stood out to me, and it's in those numbers, and I was reading this somewhere. It doesn't matter, but they were comparing rankings, offense, defense, running yards, running defense, pass year, all the things. And Georgia was just so highly ranked in every one of them. And it's like, where, you look at those stats and you say, well, where's the weakness on this team? And maybe I don't know, but I hope Saban and the boys do. But when I think about the Alabama stats, and this is the biggest cop out, and so I understand, but our team has progressed so much that our numbers are middling. We were a bad team early. I think we're a really good team now, and so and that's not how stats work. But I think what we're producing, what we're putting up, versus what we put up at the beginning of the season, I think are two different things. I'll throw this at you, and I don't know if this means anything. It's just I find it an interesting thing, and I've been tracking it. I started, I think, tracking it sort of accidentally, but now it's something I look at every time. Milroe, in terms of his distributing the ball, we've had games where he'll go, I don't know, I'm making up numbers, but 18 for 23, and so 18. So there's 18 pass completions, and that'll be to 11 different guys. And so it's like, well, it's almost mathematically impossible, to distribute the ball that much when there's so few completions. And so he's truly distributing the ball. And then I've called it the trifecta. If you think a wide receiver, a tight end, and a running back are three sort of unique position groups that can receive passes sort of on the regular. He almost always hits the trifecta. He almost always hits one player from each of those position groups. And we've had games where he's hit touchdowns to each of those three position groups. And so what I take away from that is he is not afraid to distribute the ball. He's not a guy that's just, I've had a favorite target from practice, and if that guy's not open, then we're in trouble. He doesn't care, if it's a guy fresh off the bench or true freshman, a guy that hasn't played in 3 weeks. If Milroe thinks he's open and he can get the ball to him, he'll do it. And it's hard to argue, and again, I'm not saying Milroe's the best quarterback ever, but it's hard to argue with the success that he's had and his ability to distribute the ball. Our willingness to distribute the ball is an interesting sort of subplot in how Alabama plays offense.
Yeah, completely agree. Love all that information passed over to him. I'm gonna go ahead and make my pick, and you feel free to make your pick.
Sure.
So I know Georgia's 1-7 against Saban. He's 3-0 against him in Mercedes-Benz. Mercedes-Benz has been a house of horrors for Georgia versus Alabama. 2012 was a heartbreak game. 2017 and the second 26. 2018 with Jalen Hurts coming off the bench there. 2015, even though it was out of that was in Athens on rainy. Derrick Henry ran all over us. Oddly enough, Kirby Smart's last season there. We did get a little revenge in 2021, but that was in the Lucas Oil Arena in Indianapolis. And you did blow us out pretty much in 2021. I believe everybody was against you guys, and Bryce Young came out and aired it out. And I think you guys didn't really even have a run game. With that said, I think to beat Georgia, the last four quarterbacks, I think, was Bryce Young and elite receivers, Joe Burrow, Jalen Hurts, had some great wideouts. Forget the other one that was anyway four. And I believe you guys that you have good receivers, you don't have really great receivers. And Milroe is an exceptional athlete, but I think this will be one of the better defenses. This is a Georgia defense is not great like the last 2021 and 2022, but it's good.
Yeah.
And I think with Kendall Milton, who's been running the ball really great, we got a great offensive line. Carson Beck's really hot. And if you get Bowers and maybe McConkey, he's got a lot of weapons. I think we get a late score. This is going to be a heavyweight battle, and I like us 38-31 for the last touchdown to beat you 38-31. And it's going to be close. Hey, get all the alcohol out for all the fans out there. It's going to be stressful. It's not going to be a blowout. So I got 38-31 Dogs.
Okay. Everything you said there, I think is right. I don't argue with any of that. I think it's going to be a tighter game. I think the defenses are really going to play into it,
Mm.
and I'm, maybe I'm a little low on my score, but I think we trade a couple of touchdowns. I think we trade a couple of field goals. I think the defense really asserts itself. Somebody kicks a late field goal. I'm going to say it's Alabama. And so I've got, 23-20. I think that I'm looking at that style of game.
So yeah, 23-20.
23-20.
I like it. I can see that. And then should be a great game. Mercedes-Benz 4 p.m. CBS. Everybody's going to be huddled around it, so it's going to be great. I did want to ask because it was a hot take by David Pollock, former ESPN analyst on Game Day. Still wish he was there. That's another
Yep.
story for another day. But he did make on one of the podcasts he was on. He made the great statement, and I'm sure Alabama fans will push back. First off, Nick Saban the GOAT, great respect. He's the man. But he made a thing going in this game, and he thinks that's going to be the difference in the game. He says Kirby Smart is the better coach right now because less penalties, less turnovers, and he's got the best out of this team, 29 straight. And I wanted to ask you, as an Alabama fan, do you agree with that? First off, overall resume and everything, of course, Nick Saban, and he was his predecessor. But do you think Kirby Smart is better than Nick Saban as of right now?
Well, I think if you take the career in totality, Kirby's still a work in progress
Right.
relative to, Saban, right? And so, I think we're good there.
Mhm.
Sort of right now in this moment of time, is Kirby the better coach? It's hard to argue that he's not, as much as I don't like to hear it and think it and say it. I mean, two-time national, title winner, competing, for the third. You mentioned 3 seasons in a row. Holy cow, 12-0. That's pretty amazing. And so he is accomplishing things. And just the roster turnover. And what's interesting is imagine this, right? I said, well, he lost too many guys to the NFL. He's not going to be able to do it again. And he did it again. And I'm the Alabama guy. I've seen Saban do that, right? Recycle the roster. It's just he's going to figure it out. And Kirby's figuring it out. And so, you know, I have nothing but respect for Kirby. My heart doesn't want to say that Kirby's better than Saban right now, but I would say this. Kirby probably does have a better fastball right now than Saban does. But Saban's probably a wily vet that's got some cream behind his ear or something that he could throw some junk, and so this is a team that maybe can pull something like that off. So we'll see. I want to get mad at Pollock for saying something. I really do. I mean, this is restraint on my part, but I have a lot of respect for Pollock. I agree with you. I wish he was still on ESPN. And as much as I don't want Georgia to keep winning national titles. It's fun to watch a dynasty sort of build itself. I just wish they weren't in our, SEC, sort of in our own backyard. But let me ask you this, right? Alabama, and you've seen this, right? And it's okay. You've participated in it. It's all right. Alabama has been on this run, and so we were the team that people love to hate because they just keep winning. And you guys are probably getting some of that now, right? Two in a row. And so, who do you think the public is rooting for? Like an implosion of the stadium, or like what? Because they probably have a little bit of dislike for both of us, just the general sort of public, not our fan bases.
Yeah, great question. I think there is a Alabama Georgia fatigue over the last several years in the playoffs, and I mean, if you're the committee, I think you're actually probably pulling for Georgia because there's going to be chaos if Alabama wins, and that
Yeah,
was actually going to be one of my next questions for you.
yeah.
We'll pull it up because a lot of hand wringing, a lot of things still, but a lot of answers are going to get answered. Questions going to get answered. But do you think, even though Alabama's at 8, and I was surprised to see Ohio State last night at 6, that was a little bit of a shocker for me. Even if Alabama beats Georgia, do you think Alabama gets in? Because I'll throw this scenario at you. All right, Michigan heavy favorite over Iowa, probably going to blow them out. They're in. Washington or Oregon, I believe one of them gets in. Then you got Michigan, of course, that's 1, 2, and Florida State sitting there with the backup quarterback. But if they beat Louisville 13-0, a lot of people are saying they're going to get in. So does Texas get in if they take care of business? Like they keep saying, is Georgia or is Alabama going to jump all the way up to 4 over all these other teams if everybody takes care of the business?
Yeah, I think between you got the Washington and Oregon there, one of those teams is going to lose, and so you think, well, they could both have one loss. Would they get? But I think if Oregon wins, they sort of avenge the loss and they get in there. If Washington wins, and it's pretty conclusive, Oregon's got 2 losses, so they would be out. So some of that sort of cleans up. I think, I specifically Alabama. I think. And this is a nod to Georgia, and this is a nod, I think, to the SEC. If Alabama wins, then Alabama would have, and I'm not, well, I guess I did predict they win, but that they are going to win. But I'm just saying, if Georgia wins, right, or if Alabama wins, they will have the best win of anybody this season. And they'll be one of the hottest teams in the country, and they'll be SEC champions. And I just think if it comes down to, well, you got a Pac-10 champion and you got a Big 10 champion and you got a Big 12 champion and you got an SEC champion. And even if Florida, I think Florida State's going to lose to Louisville, but even if you got the ACC champion, then I think there's an opportunity to have the conversation, who are the best conferences? And it's hard to keep SEC out of that. I think we're behind Texas because we lost to Texas. And so wherever they put Texas, we're going to be nipping at their heels. But when the conference championship comes around, then if we've got one, it'll be hard to keep us out. I think if Alabama wins on Saturday, it'll give the best win of the season for anybody, beating Georgia, and an SEC champions. I just think that's a tough. It's that's a crown that is worthy of. I'm going to say reverence. I don't know if that's the right word, but certainly respect across the college football landscape. And so if you truly end up with 5 conference champions that are the top, sort of the top, I think the conversation realistically can start to revolve around what are the best conferences, and it's hard to keep the SEC out of that. Now, I think the more interesting thing is if Louisville beats Florida State, then you kind of get to 4 and you figure what do we really think about Texas? And there might be an interesting conversation about Georgia and Texas. If our game is close, it happened a couple of years ago, right? We both went to, we both made the playoffs. And so could a scenario like that happen again? I mean, talking about pissing off all of college football, which I'm here for that, right? I think that would be great. Another thought that I'll just throw out at you. People have different opinions about, the playoffs and stuff like that. And I'm not here to debate that as much as if this year were a 12-team playoff, none of this would matter. Right. None of this would matter. And so there's, I have people, come to me like, if it was a 12-team playoffs, we would be in it. It wouldn't matter what happened to Georgia. Yeah, but you diminish the regular season. You diminish these conference championships by doing that. And for my money, most of the years that it's been a 14 playoff, we didn't have 4 teams worthy of making the playoff. And so this year that we've got 5 or 6 or maybe 7 that are truly worthy of a playoff, how much of an anomaly is that? There will never be 12. If you take the top 8 right now, then who do you add to that? Like James Madison or so, who are you adding to that 12, or to that 8? There is no one you add to that 8 that increases the value. You're just adding, you're just putting wood in a wood chipper at that point.
Yeah, I completely agree. It is hard, and then historically, it's hard to keep a SEC conference champion out of the playoff.
Yeah,
and I think you guys are definitely going to have a table for the conversation and everything, and I can see definitely get in, and Texas getting left at home. I hate to be that committee on a Sunday if a bunch of crazy things happen.
Yeah, well, I mean, I guess that's why they get the big bucks. But hey, it's all fun conversation. Alabama has work to do on Saturday. I think you guys obviously favored. It's going to be a competitive game. Both teams have work to do, but you guys are in the stronger position. I might say is the Alabama fan. You guys haven't lost since we last beat you, and so we need to we need to come back and fix something. I don't know what it is, but we need to try to fix that. So we'll see.
Yeah, and then from the Georgia side, I think it's a great conversation too. If some crazy things happen, is we've won 29 straight. We lose a close one to you guys, and we won 2 straight national titles. I think we're in the conversation that we probably clearly are, and if you guys beat us too, of being 2 of the best 4 teams, maybe try to get in there. Like I said, I know that would piss a lot of people off, but let's just say Oklahoma State beats Texas, they're probably out. Florida State loses to Louisville. I think we might come back our way in there.
Yeah.
But ideally, looking at them, the best case scenario, hopefully, beat you guys. Hopefully, would be 1 Georgia, 2 Michigan, maybe 3 Oregon bumping up, and then we would play Florida State. And the reason why is Michigan and Oregon would be ideal matchup for ratings wise for the Rose Bowl, and then us getting Florida State. Obviously, that would be an easy one because of the backup quarterback, Florida State. But ideally, as a Georgia fan, that would be a good setup.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Exactly.
I can't argue with you on that. I would, I think Michigan really has something this year, so that'll be interesting to see. But it's hard. It's again, let's take Saturday out of the picture. It is hard to envision you guys not winning it, and we got to try to stop. We got to try to stop that.
It's gonna be a game. It's gonna be a game. Bunch of headlines going into it. A lot of hand wringing on both sides.
Agreed.
And then, Dave, how do we follow you on social media and any other of your websites?
Yeah, absolutely. We sort of look at, there you go, alabamafootballpodcast.com. I've got to update some articles there, but we're alabamafootballpodcast.com. We have an email address, which is essentially the same thing, alabamafootballpodcast@gmail.com. And then we have a Twitter account or X account, and it's not the best account. I realized, there's only so many characters, but our Twitter or our X is Bama Football Pod, and you can reach out to us there. So yeah, happy to engage with fans, and that's one of the most fun parts about this. It's just me talking ball, which I enjoy, but it's the interaction, with the fans, the engagement that I think is the most fun. So yeah, certainly welcome that.
Yeah, I think it's really impressive. You mentioned earlier, I believe, when we were off air, that you've been doing it for around 12 years. You said
this is 14. This is 14. This is year 14, which is incredible. We started 2010, and
that's awesome.
And, it's been a run. Yeah.
Really appreciate that, and appreciate Dave coming on there and talking Georgia, Alabama. If anybody's still around, hopefully you are. Make sure to like, subscribe, and share the podcast. That'll really help us out. And we'll have some other episodes heading towards hopefully the playoff game or the next bowl game. So really appreciate it. Thanks for your time tonight, Dave. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Thanks, Trey. It's been a joy.
Yeah, good luck in the game.
Absolutely. Take care.
Thank you.